because all of us have been retaliated against by Google. We were all let go for protesting this cloud contract. And yeah, we're just here to talk about it. We're here to raise awareness, and we're here to let you all know that people are standing up against this, and it is not okay. We are some of the people that Google has fired against. As of, I believe, last Monday, we held a press conference and released the information that 50 people have been retaliated against and let go from Google. And we are just here to sort of talk about that. My colleague here, who will discuss the actual use of AI in this conflict and how that connects back to Project Nimbus.
First thing, I just wanted to say a little bit about No Tech For Apartheid. If you've only just now heard of the campaign, I just wanted to let you know this is not a new campaign. This has been going since at least 2021. Many workers have been involved. Many workers have been retaliated against, including before today. And the main thing we're focused on as part of the larger BDS movement is we are trying to get Project Nimbus canceled. Project Nimbus is a $1.2 billion contract with the Israeli military and government between Google and Amazon. One of the major reasons why we are concerned about Project Nimbus is because it includes Google's state-of-the-art AI for things like facial recognition, sentiment analysis, object tracking, and Amazon's part includes satellite, robotics, and these are concerning because if you know anything about how the Israeli military is using these sorts of technologies, you know they have been used as part of the ongoing apartheid for a long time and as part of the ongoing genocide. And I'm going to be handing it off to my colleague to speak more about the other technologies that inform our concern about this.
So we talked a little bit about Project Nimbus. This is a contract that we are opposing that is underneath Google and Amazon providing cloud computing services. What does that actually mean in terms of what this means for people in Gaza, people in the West Bank, and people in occupied Palestine? I think a lot of times when we talk about the scary use of AI, we don't really think about it in terms of concrete examples. And so I want to explain a few examples, the few that we know that are publicly known about how AI has been used within occupied Palestine, rather than some opaque future. This is stuff that has already been involved in the oppression of Palestinians from 2021 onwards. It's possible from before, but our earliest reports are from 2021. So just give me a moment to pull up my notes. So the Israeli occupation forces, IOF itself, has referred to the bombardment of Gaza back in 2021 as its first AI war. The use of AI, in this sense, is a central part of this strategy to maintain control over occupied Palestine. And so I'm going to refer to 4 different AI tools and 4 different technology tools used by the IOF in my examples are specifically in Gaza and in the West Bank. So first, I want to talk about an AI tool called the Gospel. The Gospel is a tool that was designed to address what was seen as a common problem by the IOF, which was not having enough targets to strike. The IOF had decided that they could not generate enough targets to strike and that they needed a way to make this to scale. And so what they did was they used an AI tool called the Gospel to, through the rapid and automatic extraction of intelligence, expand their ability to develop targets. What were these targets to strike? These were usually key pieces of infrastructure identified to be associated with Hamas. That usually meant private residences, high-rise apartment complexes, banks, and universities. With the Gospel, the IOF went from identifying 50 targets in a year in Gaza to 100 per day. This AI tool was utilized on the 11-day war in Gaza in 2021. Next. Yeah, same, for real. The next one I want to talk about is a AI tool. I want to take our attention. I know much of the focus has been regarding Gaza, especially in the last 6 months, but I want to bring our attention to the West Bank, which has also been experiencing horrific violence and suppression, not just in the past 6 months, but in the past decades. Sorry, can you hear me? Okay, I'll talk louder. So I am going to talk about a mobile application called Blue Wolf. And in order to talk about it, I'm going to be reading a couple of paragraphs from an article that was posted about Blue Wolf by the Washington Post in November of 2021. The surveillance initiative by the IDF, rolled out over the past 2 years, involves in part a smartphone technology called Blue Wolf that captures photos of Palestinians' faces and matches them to a database of images so extensive that one former soldier described it as the Army's secret Facebook for Palestinians. The phone app flashes in different colors to alert soldiers if a person is to be detained, arrested, or left alone.
Shame! Shame! Shame!
You want to know what's next? To build the database used by Blue Wolf, soldiers competed last year in photographing Palestinians, including children and the elderly, with prizes for the most pictures collected by each unit. We in the US talk often about surveillance, about our photos being used. None of this is consensual. No Palestinian agreed to this. The total number of people photographed is unclear, but at a minimum ran well into the thousands. And this tool is now used to identify Palestinians at checkpoints and result in their detainment, harassment, and beyond. The next AI tool that I want to talk about, the earliest report of it actually came out earlier this month, and it has been reported that this was heavily used in the early few months on the siege in Gaza after October. It's called Lavender. It is an AI tool that has been attributed to the rapid scale by which 15,000 Palestinians were murdered within the first few weeks of the siege on Gaza. Lavender uses AI to identify suspected militants at any ranking level, from junior to senior operatives, and place them on a kill list. It trains these AI models on information such as how many times the person of interest has switched residences in a period of time, switched cell phones, or used a cell phone previously belonging to a Hamas militant, and also whether the person is in a WhatsApp group with another known militant. Where exactly the IOF is getting information about WhatsApp groups people are in? You tell me. This AI tool, which again only identifies suspected militants, if we want to be, specific, has an error rate of 10%. What's more, in the early stages of Israel's campaign against Gazans, the acceptable civilian casualty rate was 15 to 20 civilians per junior official, and for higher level operatives, that number could rise up to 100. That was the acceptable collateral damage decided on by the IOF per target.
Shame!
And so what is done with these kill lists? These lists are fed into a system, and I'm not making this name up. We're fed into a system called Where's Daddy? Where's Daddy is specifically designed to identify these targets and wait until they are at their private residences and family residences to drop bombs on them, typically alongside their entire families. You can find all this information online. These are all published and often have quotes from IOF officials and members of the military in Israel. So when we talk about defense contracting companies, when we talk about the benefactors of genocide and occupation, both in Palestine and across the globe, these companies which are developing the physical weapons are only part of the picture. The companies which supply the computing technology to build these AI systems, which maintain the storage centers that all this training data is housed on, those companies have been directly responsible for the scale and the devastation we've seen in Gaza for the past 6 months, and for the suppression we've seen across the West Bank and the rest of occupied Palestine. Big tech is the new face of the defense contracting industry, and Google is suppressing, firing, and in some cases even arresting those within the industry for speaking out against this. So when we talk about Lockheed Martin and when we talk about Elbit Systems, we must also talk about Meta providing WhatsApp data to the IOF. We must talk about Google giving the Israeli Ministry of Defense a specialized landing zone into the Project Nimbus contract and providing the computing technology and giving them a 15% discount on consulting fees. And we must mobilize together from both inside the company and outside of it to shut that shit down. So we're going to talk a little bit about...
I do just want to add a bit of clarification. Like the tools we described, Blue Wolf, Lavender, Where's Daddy, the Gospel, these are things that predate Nimbus. We are not concerned about Nimbus because these things are Nimbus. We are concerned that Nimbus is going to be the next generation of these tools.
They're in use. Yeah, definitely. And so why do we, as Google workers, care about this, right? We can see the writing on the wall. We know that Google has signed a contract with the Israeli government We know that the clauses in that contract say that they can't deny any of the tools to the military, right? They're not being explicit about working with the military, but we know that the military can use these tools if they need to, and they can migrate their current systems over into Google Cloud Computing platforms if they need to, and likely they will. And we care about this because Google is nothing without its workers. We build its technology, right? So we have power. We have a lot of power as workers to stand up and say, we will not stand for this.
Yes.
We will not allow our labor to be used in the course of a genocide, to support a genocide. Woo. Students have power to say this to their universities, right? That's why we're here today, because you have power. The university is nothing without its students,
Yes.
right? Yes. And you have the power to say, we do not want our money being spent on a genocide, right? Supporting a genocide. And why is this important? So we hold the power to shift the conversation. They want you to think that it goes the other way, but believe me, it does not. If everyone at Google were to walk out from their jobs, what would happen? The work would stop. The work would stop, right? If every student from a university stopped paying their bills, the work would stop, right? So be smart about this. As students, you have the power to choose who your employer will be, right? You have the power to decide where your labor will go. So you're doing this organizing right now, and that's incredibly powerful. And then when you move on from this space, you can decide, are you going to work for Google? Are you going to work for a company that contracts with the Israeli government that supports a genocide? No, that's right. And you also can decide, if you do decide to do that, how will you wield your labor? How will you effectively wield your labor? It is the most powerful tool that you have. It's the most powerful tool that we have collectively. And it's critical, actually, that we bring the labor movement into the Palestinian liberation movement, right? It's critical that we build this solidarity, because that is the only way that things will change. You've seen how mainstream media outlets are trying to hide and cover up and silence what's happening in Gaza right now, right? And it's because of you, it's because of this, that people can't ignore it. People can't ignore what's happening. So you have incredible power in this, and I encourage you to use that.
I just want to talk a little bit about sort of the environment of organizing around this and kind of some of the repression that has been faced by workers. If there is one thing that I have consistently observed while I have been organizing on this subject, it's that people are afraid. People are really afraid to even just speak up, to even just be publicly associated.
Shame.
Shame.
Yeah. Shame.
Let's see. Like, I know for myself, when I, back in August, flew out to the protests that we had at Google Cloud Next, I was terrified that, like, you know, it was going to come out, that was going to be like in the media or something, that I was going to immediately lose my job. I was very lucky and kind of surprised that that didn't happen, which is good because it gave me the opportunity to keep organizing. I personally did my due diligence to try to raise this concern within the company. Like, you know, I met with my manager and my skip manager and got their advice and followed their advice and got a group of more than 10 people together to try to email one of our VPs. Never got a reply back, not even like a canned response saying, thank you for your concerns. And like, you know, I'm not the first one. Like, people have been organizing around this for years, have tried to escalate within the company through the proper channels, and just consistently we have not been heard. We've done petitions, we've done education events, we've done Q&As, etc. So that's why, like, you know, we've had to escalate. And that's what led us into doing the sit-in. Like, you know, we had to step it up, we had to show that, like, you got to listen. And unfortunately, Google responded with, I don't know if you've heard the term blood in the streets, but it's a term that flew out around Google for a little bit around another subject. 50 people got fired immediately. I was ready for that. You know, I went, you know, to a sit-in ready to get arrested. I was ready for that, but I was not ready for Google to go after people who literally just showed up the day of. So the repression is real, but that doesn't mean we can stop.
It just means we have to keep speaking up harder.
The question is, how do we boycott Google? So this is a tough one. We're going to be honest with you, right? Google has monopolized the market, right? They are quite ubiquitous. There are many alternative tools. It does take a little bit of work, right? It's, divesting takes work, right? Being a conscious consumer takes work. But that's another opportunity to utilize and wield your power. So that's a great question. And while we won't endorse necessarily any particular products, I will say that we're coming out with a guide. So you can follow us on Instagram at No Tech For Apartheid. And we will be posting a guide of alternative products that you can use as opposed to Google products. And that's a really powerful way for you to wield your power as a consumer. Just don't use Google Chrome. Just don't use it. There's so many alternative web browsers, and that's one huge way that you can boycott Google. Don't give them your data. They don't deserve it. So the question is that we have somebody who might be going into tech as a computer science major, and how do you approach conversations within the industry with your colleagues around these kind of issues? Does anybody want to take that question? How do you approach conversations with your colleagues about this? I feel like you've been doing that a lot, Mark, not to put you on the spot.
Yeah, Mark may actually do it.
Yeah, I can approach that. Well, I think for the most part, especially at a company like Google, at a company like Meta, I think a lot of people are, afraid of losing their jobs. They're afraid of having repression happen against them, especially considering repression has happened against a lot of us very recently. But I think one thing a lot of people are also very, very much afraid of is they are afraid of contributing to a genocide. I think that I joined Google because it was a decent job and I thought the company was doing good. I did not go out of my way to join a military contractor. And I think that is what Google is trying to become, personally. I think that, the way that they have reacted, the way that they have been so aggressive in their firings, I think is them basically telling the workers who work there that this is how it's going to be. And I think that a lot of Google workers are not happy with that. And I think that you can just talk to them about that. And you can talk to them about the fact that they have power to decide what they get to work on, and they should exercise that.
And just one piece of concrete advice, start with one-on-one conversations, grab some coffee with a coworker, maybe have a one-on-one meeting, see how they feel about the situation, and then go from there.
I think one thing I wanted to share, just to give a bit of hope, I think it's very easy to feel, especially in the face of very vocal opposition to our work for the liberation of Palestine, and also for, not using tech in genocide, not using tech in harm, not using tech in militarism, I think it's easy to feel or easy to believe that the general world of technology actually doesn't really care. I would disagree. We have many successful campaigns at Google that actually were specifically for anti-militarism. One was a contract called Project Maven, which was to give drone intelligence information to the Pentagon. We've had other contracts, I don't know the external name of one, but related to censorship. We had one that was providing Google Cloud products to Customs and Border Patrol. All of these have since been dropped because of internal pressure at the company and because of workers saying that they didn't want to be a part of this. And so in that sense, I actually would say there's a huge portion of the tech force that cares about their work and cares about being used for good. And we need to ensure that we are mobilizing with them, building solidarity there, and making sure that our voices are actually putting that pressure where it needs to be put.
The question was, what do we do if we don't work in tech? Well, lucky you. First. So I think there's a lot of opportunity, right? This couldn't have been done, I will just say, without the immense support of our partners, right? We have an incredible community that came and showed up for us and helped us, right? I will say that the legacy of labor organizing in tech is not so strong, right? We've had to learn from other industries that are doing this really well. And so we've partnered with people who have educated us around how to do this work. We've partnered with people who show up and support us publicly and say, like, this is wrong and I won't support it. And of course, like, the thing that every single person can do here is to stop using Google Chrome as a consumer, right? You can utilize your power as a consumer and divest from Google. That's a huge, huge, huge part.
I will also say, as someone who has been, participating in No Tech For Apartheid actions for several years now, I'm continuously shocked by how little others know about this contract, because it has taken up so much of my life and so much of my headspace. And so keep sharing this information. Make sure that everybody knows that Google is in a contract like this and what exactly it is designed to do and what kind of violence it is hoping and seeking to enable.
Yeah, and I just want to second that thank you to all of the people in the community, all of our partners who have helped support us, because truly we could not do it without, the support. And furthermore, like, all of our struggles are interconnected. Wherever you're working, I'm sure you can probably find some way in which you are connected to the struggle. So look in your own workplace. If you want to support us, go to the website, go to the Instagram, notechforapartheid.com. And they're easy as to do there. Spread the information, like was it.
Yeah, I guess a more material and specific one is depending on the industry you're entering, the company you work for may use GCP or AWS systems. Encourage your company to switch to an alternative.
So the question is, can you pressure Google to reinstate the fired workers? And yes, you can, actually. If you follow us on Instagram, we will be circulating a petition. We would like to get as many signatures as possible to reinstate the fired workers, in particular the workers that were doing things that is like very distinctly protected concerted activity. There were people who came to the sit-in and looked at us, and they were fired for that, right? So that is highly illegal, and Google is trying to really create a chilling atmosphere around organizing within its organization. And if you can support us publicly, we would appreciate those signatures and sharing our information online. Yeah, so we're going to read a tribute to. We'll have my colleague will introduce it.
So I'm not the author of the words that I'm about to read. I'm reading on the behalf of someone else, but I will be speaking about My Ubaid. My Ubaid was a intern at Gaza for Sky Geeks, which was a Google-backed program for Palestinians in Gaza who are interested in technology. To close, I would like to share excerpts from a piece by Anam Rahim, a friend of mine who worked with her during her time at Gaza Sky Geeks. Yesterday, I received word that the State of Israel, aided and abetted by American weaponry, funding, and endorsement, murdered Mai Ubaid alongside her entire family. Mai was a member of Gaza Sky Geeks, the community center and tech hub where I worked for 5 years in Gaza. Mai was diagnosed with muscular dystrophy and lost her ability to walk at the age of 12, making her wheelchair-bound for the rest of her life. She was a graduate of our Code Academy, an intensive, full-time, 6-month web development bootcamp. Mai was the valedictorian of her university class, a curious learner who landed a Google-backed internship upon graduation. She dreamed to found a startup that would support others living with disabilities. Mai was exceedingly kind, gracious, and driven. The GSG community, Gaza Sky Geeks, the people of Gaza, is what I adored most about my life and work in Palestine. I was among dreamers and builders, creators of a world that did not yet exist, a world that was withheld from them. Rather than fulfilling her big-hearted entrepreneurial dreams, Mai has become a shahida, a martyr. In Arabic, the word martyr shares an etymology with witness, as in, Mai's body has become a witness to the crime of injustice. With my shoddy Arabic, I assumed Mai's name meant water. I heard that within hours of Israel announcing that they would entirely cut off Gaza's water, food, fuel, and medication supply, a light rain drizzled upon Gaza. Tweets and Instagram posts from Gaza heralded the rainfall as a sign of God's mercy. In the wake of learning of Mai's death, I messaged a Palestinian friend. The name Mai means water, right? No, it's a different word, slightly different pronunciation. In Arabic, the name Mai means a delicate, small gazelle, just like our Mai. This summer, I began writing a book about my time in Gaza, a memoir that honors my Palestinian friends and celebrates their love for community, earth, and life. I wanted to humanize a place imprisoned by Israel and the cruelty of dirty politics. I wanted to tell stories that inspire a deep and radical love in the hearts of my readers, a love that gives way to compassion, fueled courage to stand in solidarity with Palestine. I wanted to shed light on Gaza's vulnerability, on the looming threat of its erasure. That project is paused. Instead, I'm writing obituaries. I get lost in thought contemplating how Israel murders Palestinians by the thousands. They drop bombs on homes, on whole neighborhoods, causing concrete walls to come crashing in on entire families. Take a moment to look at the walls that surround you, the walls you take for granted as your home, your shelter, your respite from the outside world. The literal and metaphysical weaponization of home. Cruelty doesn't feel like an adequate word for that kind of violence. Maya is one of several thousands of Palestinian lives stolen, wasted, to the arrogance of Western imperialism. My heart shatters again and again at the thought of all the stories, nuances, quirks, and dreams that are buried beneath rubble. The lives that have been reduced to mere numbers on your phone screen. I'm exasperated. I don't have the luxury to mourn these immeasurable losses because this moment direly demands advocacy, organizing, and action. It's maddening to me that we live in a world where boldly and directly opposing a genocide is a radical act. I fall back on the teachings of Toni Morrison. This is precisely the time when artists go to work. There's no time for despair, no place for self-pity, no need for silence, no room for fear. We speak, we write, we do language. This is how civilizations heal. So in the midst of my life's most turbulent grief, I'm here to say this. Palestine does not need our pity, it needs our power. I take solace in knowing that my soul finally knows the highest expression of peace and freedom, two privileges she was robbed of on her time on earth. I take solace in knowing that she is now liberated from a life immobilized by cruelty, that she was moving boundlessly, like a delicate small gazelle. Rest in power, Mai. I'll miss you endlessly. I love being a part of your life.